The humming of the quantum core vibrated through the deck plates as Captain Maya Reeves stood at the viewport of Earth's most advanced warship. Before her stretched the vast emptiness of space, dotted with distant stars that seemed to pulse with ancient light. Maya's reflection stared back at her from the reinforced glass, sharp features, determined eyes, and the weight of humanity's future resting on her shoulders. "Captain, final systems check is complete," announced Commander Jackson Chen, her XO, as he approached with a datapad in hand. "The Genesis is officially operational." Maya nodded, her eyes still fixed on the stars. "Status of the quantum probability drive. Stable and synchronized. Dr. Weiss says it's performing beyond expected parameters." The Genesis represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a vessel that didn't just travel through space, but could manipulate the probability fields around it. In theory, it could alter the outcome of any encounter simply by shifting the quantum possibilities in its favor, a ship that could rewrite reality itself. "The Galactic Assembly representatives are requesting permission to board for inspection," Chen added, his voice lowering. "Admiral Cole is stalling them, but they're getting insistent." Maya turned from the viewport, her face hardening. "They can wait. We're still running crucial calibrations." Since humanity's entrance into the galactic community 50 years ago, they had faced nothing but restrictions and thinly veiled contempt from the older species. Humans were too unpredictable, too adaptable, too dangerous, at least according to the Assembly's assessment. The Genesis project was humanity's answer to being constantly outgunned and outmaneuvered in a hostile galaxy. "Captain to engineering," Maya said, tapping her comm badge. "Weiss here," came the immediate response, the chief engineer's German accent more pronounced when she was focused. "How long until we can move to practical testing?" "The probability matrices are still stabilizing, Captain. I wouldn't recommend full field testing for another 24 hours. Maya's reply was interrupted by a priority alert. The bridge view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Cole's grim face. "Captain Reeves, we have an emergency situation. New Haven Colony is under attack by Draxian forces. 3 warships appeared without warning and are bombarding the settlement. Nearest response vessels are 4 hours out." Maya's blood ran cold. New Haven was a peaceful research outpost with minimal defenses, home to over 15,000 civilians. "We're dispatching you immediately," the Admiral continued. "Genesis is the only ship with any chance of reaching them in time." "Admiral, we haven't completed full systems testing," Chen began. "There's no time," Cole cut him off. "This is what Genesis was built for. Save those people, Captain. Whatever it takes." Maya exchanged a quick glance with Chen. "Understood, Admiral. Genesis is moving out." As the transmission ended, Maya was already issuing orders. "All hands to battle stations. Helm, plot fastest course to New Haven. Dr. Weiss, prepare the quantum drive for combat operations." "Captain," Weiss's voice came back strained. "Utilizing the probability drive in combat without proper calibration could have unpredictable effects." "Noted, Doctor. But 15,000 lives hang in the balance. We'll deal with the consequences later." The Genesis's engines flared to life, propelling the sleek vessel forward at speeds that defied conventional physics. Unlike traditional ships that needed to build up momentum, Genesis simply adjusted the probability of being at its destination, allowing it to cross vast distances in a fraction of the expected time. Maya stood at the command center as stars streaked past on the view screen. "Time to New Haven." "At current velocity, 17 minutes, reported Lieutenant Samara Jones from the helm. "Tactical assessment." Maya turned to Lieutenant Commander Rai Tanaka at weapons. 3 Draxian Dominion cruisers, Helix class, heavy armor, phase cannons, and gravimetric torpedoes, significantly outgun anything a colony would have for defense. Maya nodded grimly. The Draxians were one of the most aggressive species in the Assembly, constantly pushing boundaries and testing reactions. This attack was likely meant to probe human response capabilities. "Prepare defense simulations based on Draxian combat patterns," she ordered. "I want options when we arrive." As Genesis streaked through space, Maya addressed the bridge crew. "What we're about to do has never been attempted before. We're taking experimental technology into a real combat situation. I need everyone at their absolute best." "Captain," Chen said quietly, "if we reveal Genesis's full capabilities, the political fallout will be enormous. The Assembly has been looking for any excuse to further restrict our technological development." "I'm aware, Commander," Maya replied, her voice steel. "But I won't sacrifice human lives to appease xenophobic politicians. The Assembly has kept us under their thumb for too long." The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness, each second bringing more reports of devastation from New Haven. Finally, Lieutenant Jones announced, "Approaching New Haven system. Captain." Dropping to sublight in 3, 2, 1. The view screen adjusted to show 3 massive Draxian warships in orbit around the small colony world, their weapons raining destruction on the defenseless settlements below. Fires were visible even from space, scattered across the planet's surface like malevolent stars. "Open a channel," Maya ordered. Channel open. "Attention Draxian vessels. This is Captain Maya Reeves of the Earth defense ship Genesis. You are attacking a peaceful human colony in violation of Assembly protocols. Cease fire immediately and withdraw from this system." The response was almost immediate, a barrage of weapons fire directed at Genesis. The ship rocked slightly as energy beams dissipated harmlessly against its shields. "No response on comms, Captain," reported Communications Officer Patel. "They're jamming all frequencies." Maya's eyes narrowed. "So be it. Tactical, status of probability field. Operational but unstable," Tanaka replied. "Field coherence at 63%. That will have to do. Activate quantum targeting systems and lock onto the lead Draxian vessel." As Genesis's revolutionary weapon systems came online, the ship's quantum core pulsed with energy. Unlike conventional weapons that relied on destructive force, Genesis manipulated probability itself, altering the quantum likelihood of critical systems failing within enemy vessels. "Target locked," Tanaka confirmed. "Probability field focused. Fire." There was no beam, no torpedo, no visible projectile, just a subtle ripple in space between Genesis and the Draxian flagship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, cascading failures began across the enemy vessel. Weapons systems shut down. Shields collapsed. Engines failed. Within seconds, the mighty warship was adrift and powerless. The bridge crew stared in stunned silence at the effectiveness of their weapon. Even in simulations, they hadn't expected such a complete neutralization. "By the stars," whispered Chen, "it actually worked." The remaining Draxian ships immediately broke off their attack on the colony, turning their full attention to Genesis. Multiple weapons locked onto the human vessel, and a barrage of gravimetric torpedoes launched toward them. "Evasive maneuvers," Maya ordered calmly. "No need, Captain," Tanaka reported with wonder in her voice. "The probability field is automatically adjusting. Those torpedoes, they're missing." On the view screen, the crew watched as every torpedo inexplicably veered off course, missing Genesis by kilometers despite being locked on target moments before. It wasn't that the torpedoes were malfunctioning. Reality itself seemed to be shifting to ensure they couldn't hit their target. "Target second vessel," Maya commanded. "Let's end this quickly." The second Draxian ship suffered the same fate as the first, its systems collapsing in impossible cascades of failure. The third ship, witnessing the inexplicable defeat of its companions, immediately began retreating. "Captain, they're running," Tanaka announced. "Let them go," Maya replied. "They'll carry the message back to their fleet." As the final Draxian ship disappeared into FTL, the bridge erupted in cheers. They had saved the colony with no casualties on their side, a miraculous outcome that would have been impossible with conventional technology. "Damage report," Maya asked once the celebration quieted. None. Captain, Chen replied, checking his console. Not a scratch. Maya nodded, satisfaction mingling with concern. Begin rescue operations immediately. I want medical teams on the surface and engineers assessing infrastructure damage. As her crew carried out their orders, Maya returned to the viewport, staring at the disabled Draxian vessels. What they had just demonstrated wasn't just a new weapon. It was a paradigm shift in warfare. Genesis hadn't simply won a battle. It had rewritten the rules of engagement. Captain, Chen said, interrupting her thoughts. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Cole. Maya took a deep breath. Put him through. Admiral Cole's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of relief and grave concern. Captain Reeves, I've received preliminary reports about what happened at New Haven. Is it true? The Genesis neutralized 2 Draxian warships without firing a single conventional shot. The reports are accurate, Admiral. The quantum probability drive performed beyond expectations. The Admiral's expression darkened. I've also received word that 3 assembly observation vessels were in the outer system during the engagement. They recorded everything. Maya felt her stomach drop. That can't be a coincidence. No, it can't, Cole agreed. The Galactic Assembly has called an emergency session. They're demanding all data on the Genesis project and issuing a cease and desist order on further deployment. With respect, Admiral, we just saved 15,000 lives. The Assembly sat by for decades while species like the Draxians pushed us around. Now they're concerned because we can finally defend ourselves. I understand your frustration, Captain, but this technology, it frightens them. A weapon that can alter probability itself, that can disable enemy ships without conventional attacks. It changes everything. Maya stared at the view screen, her resolve hardening. Perhaps it's time for a change, Admiral. Return to Earth immediately, Captain Reeves. The diplomatic storm is just beginning, and you and your ship are at the center of it. As the transmission ended, Maya turned to find her bridge crew watching her, awaiting direction. Set course for Earth, she ordered, and prepare all data from the engagement for review. The Galactic Assembly wants answers. We'll give them something to think about. As Genesis turned away from New Haven, the quantum core pulsed with energy, a silent testament to humanity's ingenuity, and a harbinger of the conflict to come. The enormous chamber of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with agitated voices as representatives from over 200 species debated the crisis at hand. Captain Maya Reeves stood at the center of the hall, flanked by Admiral Cole and Earth's diplomatic team, facing the curved tier of Assembly representatives who looked down upon them like judges at a trial. High Arbiter's Exel, a tall, crystalline being who served as the Assembly's leader, raised a glimmering appendage for silence. The chamber gradually quieted. We have reviewed the evidence from the New Haven incident. The Arbiter's voice resonated, translated simultaneously for all present. The human vessel designated Genesis utilized technology that fundamentally alters quantum probability fields, technology explicitly forbidden under Section 27 of the Assembly Charter. Maya stepped forward. With respect, High Arbiter, Earth signed the Charter with numerous reservations regarding technological restrictions. The Genesis project falls within our legal exemptions. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Ambassador Krell of the Draxian Dominion rose. The humans deliberately concealed the development of this weapon. They waited until our peacekeeping mission approached New Haven to unveil it. Peacekeeping. Maya could not contain her indignation. Your warships were bombarding a civilian research colony. We have transmitted proof of Draxian attacks against unarmed settlers. Admiral Cole placed a restraining hand on Maya's arm, but she shook it off. She wouldn't stand by while history was rewritten. The Arbiter's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been irritation. The circumstances of the engagement are not the central issue here. It is the nature of the technology itself. A weapon that manipulates probability violates the natural order and threatens the stability of all civilized space. The Genesis is not merely a weapon. countered Dr. Ileana Weiss, who had been brought to testify as the ship's chief designer. It's a defensive system designed to minimize casualties on all sides. No lives were lost in the New Haven incident. Even the Draxian crews were unharmed. That is precisely what concerns us, interjected the Morrigan representative, an avian being with iridescent feathers. A technology that can disable any vessel without destruction gives its wielder incalculable power. Imagine a galaxy where a single human ship could neutralize entire defense fleets without firing a shot. The chamber erupted in alarmed cries and arguments. Maya watched as fear spread through the assembly like a contagion. These weren't the reactions of outraged authorities. These were the responses of those who suddenly realized they were vulnerable. After hours of testimony and debate, the assembly recessed for deliberation. Maya found herself in a small antechamber with Admiral Cole, Dr. Weiss, and Earth's diplomatic team. "This is going exactly as we feared," Cole said quietly. "They're going to demand we dismantle Genesis and surrender all research data." Maya paced the room. "We knew this might happen. The older species have maintained technological supremacy for centuries. They're not concerned about safety. They're worried about losing control." "Captain," Dr. Weiss interjected, "there's something you should know. During the recess, I received an encrypted message from my team on Genesis. They've detected unusual activity in the ship's quantum core." "What kind of activity?" "It appears the probability field is evolving. Learning from the combat experience. The system is optimizing itself in ways we didn't program." Maya exchanged a concerned glance with the Admiral. "Is it dangerous?" "Not inherently, but it's unprecedented. The quantum matrices are developing new configurations that increase efficiency by orders of magnitude. If the assembly knew about this development—" "They can't know," Cole said firmly. "Not now. Not when they're already calling for our heads." Before they could discuss further, the doors opened. "The assembly has reconvened," announced a blue-skinned protocol officer. "Your presence is required." Back in the main chamber, High Arbiter Zexol delivered the verdict. "By majority vote, the Galactic Assembly hereby classifies the quantum probability technology as a prohibited weapon of mass disruption. Earth is ordered to decommission the vessel Genesis and surrender all research materials related to the technology within 30 standard days." Maya felt cold anger settling in her chest. "And if Earth refuses?" The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with hard light. "Then Earth will face economic sanctions, technological embargo, and, if necessary, military enforcement action." Admiral Cole stepped forward for damage control. "The Assembly's concerns are noted. Earth will consider these terms and respond formally through diplomatic channels." As they were escorted from the chamber, Maya's communicator vibrated with an urgent message from Genesis. She discreetly checked the screen and saw a single line that made her blood run cold. "GENESIS under ATTCK. Multiple hostile vessels. Returning fire." Maya pulled Admiral Cole aside. "Sir, Genesis is being attacked." Cole's face drained of color. "By whom?" "The ship should be in secured orbit with a skeleton crew." "Unknown, but I need to return immediately." "Go." Cole nodded. "I'll handle things here and follow as soon as possible." Maya slipped away from the diplomatic contingent and made her way to the spaceport. Within 30 minutes, she was aboard a high-speed shuttle heading back to Earth orbit where Genesis waited. As the shuttle approached, Maya could see flashes of weapons fire surrounding her ship. 5 vessels of unknown configuration were engaging Genesis, which was defending itself with conventional weapons rather than its probability drive. "Genesis, this is Captain Reeves. Status report." "Captain." Lieutenant Tanaka's voice came through, strained over weapons fire. "We're under attack by unidentified ships. They breached our defensive perimeter using assembly security codes." "Assembly codes?" Maya's mind raced. "Where's Commander Chen?" "Wounded but stable. We've lost 3 crew members, Captain. They came aboard with boarding parties before we sealed the ship." I'm approaching the starboard docking bay. Prepare for emergency protocols. Captain, be advised. They're specifically targeting the quantum core. This isn't a random attack. They know exactly what they're after. As Maya's shuttle maneuvered through the chaos toward Genesis, one of the attacking ships broke off to intercept her. Energy beams lanced through space, narrowly missing the small craft as Maya executed evasive maneuvers. Genesis, I need covering fire. The massive human warship responded immediately, directing a precise barrage that forced the attacker to break off. Maya's shuttle slipped into the docking bay moments later, the protective doors sealing behind her. She raced through the corridors toward the bridge, passing wounded crew members and scorch marks from firefights. When she reached the command center, she found it in disarray. Consoles damaged, emergency lighting casting harsh shadows, and Commander Chen being treated for a plasma burn across his shoulder. Report, she demanded, taking her position. 5 vessels, unknown configuration, but using advanced cloaking technology. Tanaka replied. They appeared without warning and immediately launched boarding parties. Their primary target appears to be Deck 7. The quantum core, Maya realized. They're trying to steal our technology. Who are they? Chen winced as a medic applied regenerative gel to his wound. No identification, but their tactics suggest military training. And Captain, they knew all our security protocols. This was an inside job. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Someone in the assembly provided them with our codes. They're not waiting for us to surrender the technology. They're taking it. Captain, Dr. Weiss's voice came over the comm. I've sealed the quantum core chamber, but they're cutting through. And there's another problem. The core is becoming increasingly unstable due to the attack. The probability fields are fluctuating wildly. Can you stabilize it? Not without shutting it down completely. And if we do that, we lose our advantage. Maya finished. Keep it running. I'm on my way. As Maya moved to leave the bridge, the ship rocked violently from a concentrated attack. Shields at 47%, called out Lieutenant Jones. They're coordinating their fire on our weakest points. Maya made a split-second decision. Activate the quantum probability drive. Target all hostile vessels. Tanaka looked up sharply. Captain, with the core instability, deploying the drive could have unpredictable effects. We don't have a choice. They're trying to steal technology that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. We can't let that happen. Tanaka nodded grimly and input the commands. Quantum probability field engaging. Unlike the controlled, subtle effect they had witnessed at New Haven, this time the activation of the drive created visible distortions in space around Genesis. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend as probability fields extended outward toward the attacking ships. On the view screen, Maya watched as the nearest vessel began experiencing cascading systems failures. But something was different. The effect wasn't just disabling the ship, it was altering its physical structure. Metal frames twisted and bulkheads collapsed as though the laws of physics were being rewritten around it. What's happening? Maya demanded. The probability field is unstable. Weiss reported from engineering, panic evident in her voice. It's not just affecting electronic systems anymore. It's changing the quantum probability of matter maintaining structural integrity. The attacking vessel began to collapse in on itself, its hull crumpling like paper as crew members frantically abandoned ship in escape pods. The other hostile ships immediately ceased their attack and began retreating, but the probability field had already locked onto them. Shut it down, Maya ordered. Deactivate the drive now. I can't, Weiss cried. The system isn't responding to commands. On the screen, the second vessel began experiencing the same catastrophic failures as the first. Then the third. In horrified silence, the bridge crew watched as ships that had been attacking them moments before disintegrated into clouds of component atoms. The core is overloading, Weiss reported. Probability cascade is approaching critical levels. If we don't contain it, the field could expand beyond our control. Maya turned to Chen. Evacuate all non-essential personnel. Prepare escape pods. Captain. Do it, Commander. That's an order. As Chen began organizing the evacuation, Maya headed for the turbolift. I'm going to engineering. If we can't shut down the core remotely, I'll do it manually. She raced through corridors as the ship groaned and trembled around her. The quantum probability field was affecting Genesis itself now, causing random fluctuations in gravity and structural integrity. Walls phased between solid and translucent states. Equipment floated momentarily before crashing back down. When Maya reached engineering, she found Dr. Weiss frantically working at the core controls, sweat beading on her forehead. The containment field is failing, Weiss explained without looking up. The probability matrices have evolved beyond our understanding. It's like they've developed some kind of consciousness. How is that possible? I don't know. The attack must have damaged the safeguards we put in place. Now the system is rewriting its own programming, changing the probability of its own evolution. Through the transparent barrier, Maya could see the quantum core pulsing with energies that shifted between states of matter. It was beautiful and terrifying. A glimpse into the fundamental forces that shaped reality itself. Can we jettison it? Maya asked. Weiss shook her head. Not while it's active. We'd need to power it down first. And we can't power it down remotely. So we need to do it manually. Maya moved toward the core chamber door. Captain, you can't go in there. The probability field inside that room would tear you apart at the molecular level. Maya paused, her hand on the door control. If that field expands beyond this ship, how many people will die? Weiss didn't have to answer. They both knew the stakes. Give me your access codes, Maya said. I'll initiate the shutdown sequence from inside. It's a suicide mission. Maybe. Maya managed a tight smile. Or maybe I can change the probability. After a moment's hesitation, Weiss entered her authorization code. The chamber door hissed open, revealing the swirling energies of the quantum core. Maya took a deep breath and stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, reality seemed to fracture around her. She saw multiple versions of herself moving through the room, probability shadows of actions she might take. The air felt thick, resistant, as though she was moving through water. With each step toward the core, Maya felt her body being pulled in different directions, probability trying to redistribute her component atoms. She focused her mind on a single purpose, reaching the control panel, shutting down the core. When she finally reached the panel, her vision was splitting into multiple overlapping realities. Her fingers, sometimes solid, sometimes translucent, hovered over the shutdown sequence. Captain, Weiss's voice came through her communicator, distorted and echoing. The field is stabilizing around you. Somehow you're affecting it. Maya didn't respond, couldn't respond, as she initiated the shutdown sequence. The quantum core pulsed once, twice, then began to dim. The swirling energies slowed, reality gradually solidifying around her. As the core powered down, Maya collapsed to her knees, her vision swimming. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness claimed her was the quantum core going dark, and with it, the technological advantage that humanity had briefly held over the galaxy. Captain Maya Reeves stood at attention before the Earth Defense Council, her dress uniform immaculate, despite the deep exhaustion etched into her features. 2 weeks had passed since the Genesis incident, 2 weeks of interrogations, medical examinations, and urgent diplomatic negotiations. The Galactic Assembly has made their final ruling, announced Admiral Cole, addressing the assembled military and political leaders. The quantum probability technology has been officially classified as a prohibited weapon under galactic law. All research materials must be surrendered, and the Genesis must be decommissioned immediately. Maya's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. The fact that unknown forces had attempted to steal the technology should have vindicated Earth's position, but instead, it had only intensified the Assembly's fears. Furthermore, Cole continued, Earth will be subject to regular inspections to ensure compliance. Failure to adhere to these terms will result in our expulsion from interstellar trade routes and diplomatic protection. So they're threatening us, General Havers remarked from his seat at the council table. After we've been attacked twice, once at New Haven, and once in our own orbit. The Assembly claims the attack on Genesis was carried out by rogue elements, Cole replied. They've disavowed any official knowledge or participation. Convenient, Maya said, unable to contain herself any longer. They attempt to steal our technology, and when that fails, they legally force us to hand it over. Admiral Cole gave her a warning look, but President Chen raised her hand. Captain Reeves has earned the right to speak freely. Her actions saved not only the Genesis but potentially countless lives had that probability field continued to expand. Maya nodded gratefully to the president. What concerns me most isn't losing the technology. It's what happens after we surrender it. Does anyone truly believe the Assembly will destroy this research rather than study it themselves? A somber silence fell over the room as the implication sank in. Captain Reeves, the president said after a moment, your medical reports indicate you experienced unusual effects after your exposure to the destabilized quantum core. Maya hesitated. She hadn't discussed this with anyone outside her medical team. Yes, Madam President. The doctors believe the probability field altered my neurological patterns in ways they don't fully understand. Can you elaborate? Maya chose her words carefully. I experienced glimpses of potential outcomes, moments of prescience that show me possibilities rather than certainties. You're seeing the future? General Havers asked incredulously. Not exactly. I'm seeing probability waves. The same kind the quantum core manipulated, but internalized. They manifest as intuitions, visions, sometimes even dreams. President Chen leaned forward. And what do these visions tell you about our current situation? Maya closed her eyes briefly, letting the swirling possibilities wash over her consciousness. When she opened them again, her gaze was resolute. There's something the Assembly isn't telling us. Something beyond our borders that frightens them more than our technology does. The council chamber remained silent as Maya continued. 3 days ago, I began seeing the same vision repeatedly. A massive void expanding at the edge of charted space, consuming everything in its path. Star systems going dark one by one. Admiral Cole frowned. There have been reports of communication disruptions from the Outer Rim colonies, but nothing to suggest. Check the pattern. Maya interrupted. The disruptions aren't random. They're expanding systematically, like a wave. President Chen turned to her advisors. I want all data from the Outer Rim sectors compiled and analyzed immediately. As the meeting continued, Maya found herself increasingly distracted by the probability waves rippling through her mind. Something was coming. Something that made the political struggle with the Assembly seem trivial by comparison. After the council adjourned, Maya was approached by Dr. Weiss, who had been observing from the back of the room. How often are you experiencing these visions now? The scientist asked quietly. Almost constantly, Maya admitted, and they're getting stronger. Weiss nodded as though this confirmed her suspicions. I've been analyzing the data from the quantum core before it shut down. Captain, I don't think your exposure was an accident. The core was evolving, becoming more than we designed it to be. I think it chose you. Chose me. That's impossible. It was a machine, not a sentient being. Was it? Weiss challenged. At the quantum level, the distinction between consciousness and complex systems becomes blurred. What if the core developed a form of awareness we don't understand? And what if it recognized something in you? A compatibility, a resonance. Before Maya could respond, her comm unit beeped with an urgent message. Captain Reeves to Command Center immediately. Priority Alpha. When Maya arrived at the command center, she found Admiral Cole standing before a large holographic display showing the Outer Rim sectors. Vast swaths of the map were marked in red. We analyzed the communication disruption patterns as you suggested, Cole said without preamble. You were right. Something is moving through the Outer Rim, and it's heading toward assembly space. Maya studied the display, a chill running down her spine as the pattern matched what she had seen in her visions. What do we know about it? Very little. The few transmissions we've received describe some kind of spatial anomaly that disrupts all technology within its radius. Ships, colonies, even entire planets go dark when it passes. The assembly knows. Maya realized. That's why they're so desperate to control advanced technology like ours. They're preparing for whatever this is. Cole's expression was grim. If that's true, then forcing us to dismantle Genesis makes no strategic sense. We'd be stronger against this threat with the technology than without it. Unless they're not planning to fight it at all. Maya said slowly, the possibilities crystallizing in her mind. What if they're planning to use us as a buffer? Humanity is on the edge of assembly space, closest to the outer rim. If this anomaly continues on its current path, Earth would be the first major civilization in its path. Cole finished, his face paling. The next 12 hours were a whirlwind of activity as Maya and Admiral Cole presented their findings to the Earth Defense Council. President Chen immediately authorized a covert operation. While officially complying with the Assembly's demands to decommission Genesis, they would secretly prepare the ship for one final mission. 3 days later, Maya stood on the bridge of Genesis, watching as her crew made final preparations. The ship had been officially decommissioned. Its existence erased from public records, its quantum core supposedly neutralized and surrendered to Assembly authorities. "Status report," she requested, settling into the command chair. "All systems operational," Commander Chen reported from his station, his injured shoulder now fully healed. "Quantum core is stable at 40% capacity, enough for propulsion and basic defensive capabilities, but not enough to trigger assembly sensors." Dr. Weiss, the chief engineer, looked up from her console. "The modifications are complete. If my calculations are correct, we should be able to contain the anomaly long enough to study it. And if your calculations are wrong," Weiss managed a tight smile, "then we'll be the first to discover exactly what happens to ships that encounter this thing." Maya nodded, turning to the view screen that showed Earth growing smaller as they moved away from orbit. "Helm, set course for the outer rim, coordinates 227 Mark 43. Maximum stealth protocols." As Genesis slipped away from Earth, Maya felt a strange sense of destiny. The probability waves in her mind had quieted, converging on this single path forward. Whatever awaited them at the edge of known space, she was certain of one thing: Genesis had been built for this moment. Their journey through the outer reaches of human territory was tense but uneventful. Genesis moved quietly, avoiding major trade routes and patrol areas. When they finally reached the coordinates where the anomaly had last been detected, they found only emptiness. "Full sensor sweep," Maya ordered. "Look for any spatial distortions or quantum irregularities." For hours, they searched the sector, finding nothing but the eerie silence of space where bustling colonies should have been. 3 outposts and a mining facility had simply ceased to exist, leaving no debris, no radiation signatures, nothing to indicate what had happened. "Captain," Tanaka called from tactical, "I'm detecting a faint quantum resonance pattern at bearing 220 Mark 15. It's similar to our core's signature, but different, older somehow." On screen, maximum magnification. The view screen shifted to show what appeared to be empty space, but as they watched, the stars beyond seemed to ripple slightly, as though viewed through heat waves. "That's it," Maya whispered, recognizing the pattern from her visions. "Take us closer, 1/4 impulse." As Genesis approached the distortion, the ship's sensors,